Hey, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Rich Life podcast, where we talk about wealth, health, and happiness. Today, we decided to talk about the topic of gratitude and specifically the neuroscience of gratitude and what it does to your brain. And we're going to talk about what happens when you don't practice it, right? We oftentimes hear the importance about being mindful and being grateful, but yeah, today I thought I would share some neurological tidbits and some background behind why it's a good idea to practice this.
I think everybody knows that it's a feel good feeling that is everlasting. If you have gratitude, you can't be upset or in
Mhm.
a bad mood. The key is being able to turn it on like a muscle at will. Why is that the case? That's what we're here to talk about today.
When you practice gratitude, it activates certain areas of your brain. And when these areas are activated, it inhibits or makes it virtually impossible for other areas of your brain to be active. So, like you mentioned, when you're feeling gratitude, it's not possible to feel angry, depressed, or fearful. Right. So, it is a really good way to switch out of a negative mindset. Right. And let's face it, none of us are always going to be feeling happy and great. There are days where we're going to feel like crap. There are days where we can't do something or insert whatever negative emotion. That's just part of life. Right? But sometimes we see ourselves in it and we wonder, oh man, I don't like to feel depressed. I don't like to feel anxious. What can I do to get out of it? Something, a gratitude practice, or just spending like 5 minutes thinking of, hey, what am I grateful for in this life? That will neuroactivate the the happy centers of your brain and quickly switch you out of that.
Many different ways people do this. I know Tony Robbins has this like priming exercise where you play music, you visualize things that made you happy,
Yeah.
and then it takes, I think it's like a few minutes, five
Yeah.
minutes.
Few minutes, yeah.
Some people have those gratitude journals. While I brush my teeth, I think of three things. What's your go-to tactics for this?
Yeah. One thing I've started implementing starting last year is like a daily gratitude practice. In fact, I start that in the mornings. I use an app called Evernote to take notes. In there, I have like my digital journal, right? And then I'll have prompts in there, right? To simple ones, be like, what are three things you're grateful for? Just start to try my mind to be in that mode just from the first thing I wake up in the morning. I've noticed that when I'm in a headspace where I am thankful and grateful for everything I have, it's just a great start to the day. Not only am I more productive, but a lot more optimistic, and your entire outlook is and how you feel is just better than if you wake up and the first thing you grab is like your phone and you look at all the headlines of all the crap happening around the world. That's someone else inserting thoughts into your mind and in a way controlling how you start the day. Whereas if you have a practice, even prompts for yourself or a priming exercise like Tony Robbins does, you're in control. You're the one who determines what things are going through your mind, right? You can either read the news, which is meant to activate the fear centers in us, or you can activate things that bring up joy and gratitude and other positive emotions.
I just use this as an excuse not to do it. But when I would write it down, I don't write my stuff down because I felt like it was the same thing every single time. Do you fall into that rut? Doesn't matter, just do it anyway. Have you heard about that?
So I have noticed that things do repeat, but I think that's good. Things like, hey, I'm grateful for like my wife. I'm grateful for my beautiful kids. I'm grateful for
The dog.
yeah, dog. Like grateful for the beautiful like surroundings that I'm living in. I think those are good. I think these are things we don't want to take for granted. We want to root ourselves in these things. The last thing we want is to take these for granted and have all these wonderful things be invisible to us. I've noticed that when I'm doing this, and let's say I'm doing this because I'm in a negative headspace or I'm feeling anxious or depressed or whatnot. Initially, it is difficult to come up with, let's say, 3 or 5 things that I'm grateful for. But I personally noticed that once things start coming out of my mind onto a page, it becomes easier to list all the things you're grateful for. Might be hard to think of the first 3 or 5 things, but I've noticed that once things flow, then the floodgates have just been opened up. And then all of a sudden, I can write 20 things, I can write 50 things. And in just a few minutes, you're just grateful for everything. Just going back to neuroscience, that's what it does. It activates like these neural pathways that might have been dormant for a little bit, and just opens it up, and it can change your outlook completely.
So I'm looking through your article right now. So what is the center of your brain where it puts in fear or despair or depression? Like where does that come from? Because is that what's happening? Is like the fact that it's that
Mhm.
portion is doing something opposite, that it can't secrete those types of negative emotions? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
It's like if you're a ship, right? The
Mhm.
water's coming out, it can't come in and sink you in a way. Is that
Correct.
kind of
Absolutely. So we're talking about things like fear and anxiety. Like a lot that comes from the center of the brain called the amygdala, right? Those are closely related to the limbic system, which is very active in a lot of these like, emotions that we feel, right? So I'll start throwing out some neuroscience terms out there, but they've actually studied this. They've seen that when you practice gratitude and mindfulness, it activates multiple areas of your brain. One of them is called the prefrontal cortex. That's very important for us for things like decision making, planning, social interactions, even, right? And they've studied on functional MRI that gratitude enhances the prefrontal cortex's ability to make decisions, have a more optimistic outlook on life, and to have better regulation over your emotions. Another area that is heavily involved in emotions is called the anterior cingulate cortex. It's also really important for empathy. When you practice gratitude, it increases empathy, it helps manage stress and improves self control. You also have your hypothalamus, which is really important for sleep and overall like bodily homeostasis. Gratitude reduces these stress levels, improves your sleep, just enhances your overall physical health, including your immune system. You have your hippocampus, which folks usually associate with memory. So the hippocampus is an area, for example, that is implicated in Alzheimer's disease. So as we get older, our hippocampus naturally shrinks, and I usually tell folks we're all going to get dementia, we're all going to get something like Alzheimer's. The question is, do we die before we actually get it? Gratitude mindfulness actually increases blood flow to the hippocampus. It helps to create new neurons in there. So the more gratitude we practice, the bigger our hippocampus will be, and the longer we will have that area of our brain before it shrinks so much that we start to lose our memory.
so when people talk about antidepressants, what exactly are those things doing? Do they specifically impact one of those few places you were mentioning? Is that what's going on, or is it how do those things work?
Yeah, antidepressants, there's different classes around, right? But I think the most common ones we talk about nowadays are SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So they act on the serotonin system.
Serotonin is a hormone, right, that gets secreted.
Mhm. Correct. Yeah, correct. So, the neurochemical pathways they are complicated. It's not just associated with one area of your brain. When we talk about emotions and different functions, we talk about neural pathways, like everything is interconnected. So yeah, it's like antidepressants, it just works on this one thing, but as you can imagine, this is my take on it. Just try to tweak one or a couple of neurochemicals. It's never going to be the same as organically regaining that balance in you. Right? You're trying to tweak one or two ingredients, but that's just not the natural and best way to go about solving a problem. It's a very targeted approach, whereas if you really want to address something as complex as anxiety and depression, it takes a much more holistic approach. And I think this is why when you actually look at the statistics of how much do like medications work for anxiety, depression, I mean, it's compared to a placebo, it's quite underwhelming.
It makes you more complacent and like the things you should be doing, you do less of because you're more reliant on the
Yeah.
drug. In a way, like maybe they should have you do have to resort to antidepressants, that there's some kind of a workbook or set of exercises that help get over it, just like
Oh,
rehabbing an ankle or something like that.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. All the major studies show that when you combine antidepressants with cognitive behavioral therapy, right, if you're actually getting some therapy, talking about things rather than just relying on medications alone. Just combining it with something like CBT, talk therapy, or social support network, your results are way better than just medication alone. Plus, you have side effects. You have some of the medicines will give you weight gain. Some of them will affect your libido. So, yeah, definitely not my recommended approach. In
Yeah.
combination with other things, there's a role for it. But if you're just relying on that as a quick fix, your chance of success is pretty darn low. Yeah.
But would you say that stuff gets the momentum going in the right direction and you got to put in the work?
Yeah, there's a role there for
Or
some
are you
people.
saying,
Yeah.
hey, try out these mindfulness practices first and then go from there? Yes.
That's usually where I would go first. It depends, right? If someone is so severe and they're bordering on wanting to harm themselves, harm others, or a risk of being hospitalized, that's different, right? That so it depends, right? I don't want to say a blanket statement because there is a role for medications. That being said, holistic approaches are unfortunately far underutilized. Our society today is a bit quick, want that quick fix. It's checking your fluid levels. Which one's low? I just need to fix this and I'll be good to go. Our brains are the most complicated organ and we're still figuring it out. It's not that simple as, oh, just increase this neurochemical and you're good to go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as testosterone, right? Like just
Mhm.
jam up the testosterone and it goes. That's a lot more crude and simple than what we're talking about here.
Even with testosterone, a lot of side effects, a lot of unfortunate side effects and increased risk of major, major health problems down the road, right? You have
Right.
increased risk of cardiovascular disease, strokes, all these things.
So I guess here's a question that some people might have. Dr. Poe's a doctor, but he's not giving anybody specific medical advice, right? Consult your own doctor. And if you're having suicidal thoughts, like talk to somebody as soon as possible,
Yeah.
dial 911. But what would you say, Paul, like somebody who's doing all right, they're maybe looking for optimizing health and mindfulness, or maybe 60%, 70% there. What would be some exercises that you might give somebody to get momentum in the right direction?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for reiterating that disclaimer. This is just very general information. Definitely consult your own medical professional for any problems that you may be experiencing. To answer your question, we've talked about some ways you can like cultivate gratitude. I love like Tony Robbins' priming exercise because a significant part of that does involve gratitude, right? Thinking about things that you're thankful for. It also includes visualizing things you want in the future, being grateful for that. In many ways, it's that whole process it's activating, turning on these neural pathways that are the opposite of fear, anxiety, depression, right? We're just finding ways to activate those neural pathways associated with positive emotions, right? When you activate these, it promotes growth of new neurons in those areas of your brain and has a lot of positive health effects as well. We talked about like something like gratitude journal, like mindfulness practices, some sort of routine, right? Like you mentioned when you brush your teeth, you think of three things that you're grateful for. Like these are all really easy to implement and effective ways that we can cultivate gratitude and give our brain a boost. Something like getting into the habit of regularly expressing gratitude to others, acknowledge and thank those around you. Thank your server, thank the person who opens the door for you, even if it's something like as simple as just like verbally saying it, right? Makes the other person feel better. And you notice that you probably feel better too when someone says thank you for something simple that was done.
I got a
And
couple of those. You can just go to Starbucks, give them $100 and get a whole bunch of $5 gift cards. And it's not about the money, but
yeah.
it's like physical reminders of, hey, give this $5 gift card to somebody and try and get rid of them before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then also that gratitude thing. I think I had it one time. I don't do this anymore. I don't know why I don't do
Mm.
this, but I had the physical thank you cards and I would actually write in them and mail it. I think I don't do it now because I don't know what anybody's address these days, but
Yeah.
I would have a reminder like on a monthly basis, just, hey, think back the last couple weeks, who helped you out, and just write one of those things
Yeah.
out. I will share that maybe 10, 15 years ago, I didn't have fun at my job and it was not the most fun times. I do recall there were a few weeks in a row that I forced myself to do that Tony Robbins priming thing, or I don't really
Mhm.
know whose it was, but you go on YouTube, type in motivational YouTube tracks.
Yeah.
I didn't even know this thing was a thing. And then my buddy showed them to me. And he says he just watches these all the time. But if you search for it once, obviously YouTube's going to keep serving it up to you.
Yeah.
Try it out. Maybe that might be something
Yeah.
you guys might try in the future or put
Yeah.
into your daily routine.
Absolutely. A lot of folks in our audience identify as high achievers or type A folks. The reason why it matters for type A folks and high achievers is as it addresses a bunch of the unique challenges that high achievers. So, number one, when you practice gratitude, this actually helps you to foster a more resilient mindset. Right? And this enables folks to recover more quickly from failure and to maintain optimism. So if you think about a high achiever, entrepreneur, you're going after things, you're going to fail. And so I think we would all agree that emotional resilience is extremely important. Work-life balance. That's something that I've struggled with at one point in my life. Why we moved across the continent to do a big reset. Gratitude helps you recognize the non-material aspects of life. This will promote the better balance between work and personal life and ultimately help you go the distance. Otherwise, it's going to be easy to work hard, but you're going to burn out and you're going to need something to keep more important inner balance to find true happiness and fulfillment.
I think that's also the sad part about type A folks are able to will
Yeah.
themselves so far with
Yeah.
one arm tied behind their back and a
Hmm.
sprained ankle
Yeah.
and no mindfulness practice and positive self-talk that you can get by in life pretty well without
Hmm.
doing this stuff if you're a high achiever,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazingly. I guess I look at it like, look how much further you could go. Look how much
Mm,
more optimistic you could be. But at some
exactly.
point, something in life's gonna get you.
At some point, something is going to get you. And if you're running with one arm behind your back, sprained ankle, it is going to catch up with you. It's just a matter of time. But practicing something like gratitude, it actually makes you be able to go further, faster, and also for longer. It's going to give you ultimately more fulfillment, more happiness, and more meaning. And that's the stuff that really keeps you going for the long haul. When we talk about our deep why, our mission, the things that drive us, you need this stuff. You need to cultivate this part of you. Truly successful people, the people that have long staying power or balance in life, they've invested in this aspect of their life. You might not see it in the commercials and what's displayed on social media, but they'll tell you this stuff is really important.
A lot of times it comes out of necessity because they went through some turmoil
Yeah.
where they had to grit down and get it. I guess what we're advocating here, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Get a little confidence. When I first started to get into this stuff almost a couple of decades ago, I remember I was doing all right. One, my takeaway was it got me more confident. I could do these types of things and get a bit of that edge when you were down a touchdown or two. That helped for the next time, the next up and down. Some people never go through life with ups and downs. If that's you, happen. It's gonna
Yeah.
happen
Yeah.
at some point. But Paul's kind of coming at it from more of it makes life richer, and
Mm.
but I'm coming from the opposite end. It's gonna get you, so you better be prepared. And I would rather do it on my own terms.
There will be ups and downs, and if you've invested in the time to practice gratitude or mindfulness, then when you hit stress, when you hit failure, you're going to appreciate actually those times because you're going to be better able to see those as opportunities for progress and learning. And it counteracts what a lot of high achievers have, which is a knack for perfectionism. Perfectionism is actually the lowest standard because there is no standard of being perfect. You're going to fail. You're going to fail a lot. If you're able to appreciate those failures, then you're going to see those as stepping stones to growth, progress, more happiness and fulfillment.
And part of that is being aware of the saying, you're a fish in water.
Mhm.
The fish is not aware that there's water because it's invisible to them. But
Right.
we try and talk about this stuff very deliberately, almost in a meta sense, so that when obstacles and barriers come, we've already discussed it in a way where it will come and it's just another obstacle and then you move forward. So you're a fish aware of the water. In a way.
Correct. Yeah. I like that analogy.
But yeah, I think That's a good wrapping up point. Paul's got his article. If you guys want to sign up for his email list, a lot of great articles on his website.
Lena and I would encourage you folks to think about this stuff. And there's a lot of multifaceted benefits of like being aware of this and actually putting it into practice. Right? There's health benefits, there's brain benefits, but it's ultimately going to make you more successful in all the domains of life. And there's very few things that you can say that about. Right? They make such a big deal about this in a lot of spiritual practices. Over thousands of years, they've realized how important this stuff is. It might be basic in a sense, but it's also so powerful. This is why
Everybody does it.
it's something that has been passed down for thousands of years. People back then had stress and they had problems too. They're really wise people. They realize there's a different aspect, different way to go about things, right? There's more to life than just going after material success.
Some people like to examine the roots, see the structure, the branch structures, and some people just want to eat the fruit, right? So you want to understand it, you can understand it to your heart's content, or you can just use the best practices and what's worked for other people in the past. And I think that's what we try and distill. A lot of readings, a lot of content that's out there, some of these best practices. If there's something else that worked for you guys, please do share with us. We'll talk about it on a future podcast. Share it with your friends and rate the show on iTunes. And we'll
See you guys next time. Bye.